The sixth president of FEW was Mae Morris. Mae was a federal women's program manager for the Environmental Protection Agency. She served as national president from 1976 to 1978.
When I joined FEW, it was in 1969, and I helped to organize the Space Coast chapter down in Florida. And you've heard someone else allude to this before, but let me tell you, that was 22 years ago, and it was not easy down in the country to try to establish and then operate and function a chapter of FEW. Anything that was a woman's group, you see, they wanted to equate us with either a union or some, you know, wild feminist group. So we were not wanted, and it was very difficult at that time to get that started. You know, you were really sort of walking in the raindrops and trying not to get too wet. But it was difficult. But also it was very important, I think, in my growth in the organization, having been one of the organizers and then a vice president of that chapter and then a chapter president, and then I ran to run nominations for the national organization, and I became chair of that. And at the same time then Priscilla Ransahoff was naming the regional managers, and she named me as the Southeastern regional manager, which covered 8 of the southeastern states and the Canal Zone, where, as you heard Janice say, we had a big and vigorous chapter. But all of that country experience was very important to me. And then I was vice president for chapter organization when Janice was national president. When I moved to the presidency role in 1976 to 78, I was fortunate to come to Washington, D.C., and to be there and get to know other organizational leaders. And a wonderful pattern had been established for me by the previous presidents. I learned, because all of them were role models, and I learned some and took from some and each person that had been there. I tried to carry on the pattern that they had established and to try to add my own initiatives to that. You see, Priscilla had started having training around the country, you know, 4 times a year, and I tried to continue that. Janice had started a monthly letter to all of the chapter presidents and the regional managers and the national officers, and I tried to continue that. In the meantime, you know, we're traveling, we're installing new officers, we're setting up new chapters, we're doing lots of things and learning lots of things. But the pattern was there, and they were great role models for me, and they supported me in all of my efforts. It was a good time to be president, and I think that Dorothy will tell you later and will agree that it was a good time to be national president of FEW. That was in the Carter administration. And President Carter had done lots of really good things for minorities and women. And in fact, there was a book that they published during his administration where over 400 women were placed in these top plum jobs. And FEW met with, and they do that, when there's going to be a new administration, when there's going to be a new president come in, the national president of FEW will, with other women's organizational leaders, they meet with the President of the United States. They also meet with the team that, that come in and try to start to fill vacancies so that we can have an input and try to get more women appointees in the government. It was a good time, though. We were doing lots of things. They were having civil service reform, and FEW made input into the civil service reform. As president, I gave testimony to Congress on things like flex time, veterans preference. We also continued, as Janice had started, the FEW-FWP relationship agreement. We continued to get that renewed every year, and I was able to do that. I was able in 1977 to get the first image FEW relationship, very similar, where the organizations would work together, and I was able to get that in place in 1977. On my watch, I was also able to establish the advisory committee made up of some, top people, plus the past presidents, that would lead and guide the organization and give them their advice. I continued the work that Janice had started in her years by getting the work finished on the FEW-LEF organization. I visited, of course, most all of the regions and many chapters. Before I finished, in early 1978, before I finished my last year as president, I wrote to all of the heads of agencies, the big agencies in and around Washington, and I, with a